right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Ward Radio live stream. I am your host, Cardin Ellis, and today I am joined by a killer cast via Zoom of none other than Austin Falter of Falter Media, as well as by Jacob Hansen of Thoughtful Faith. And we're going to be talking about this topic here. I'm actually super cool. I am super cool. I'm super excited to talk about this cool topic, none other than the real Joseph Smith history and kind of like a docu-series that Austin and Jacob are putting together. So I don't want to talk anymore, bro. Like, let's just dive right in. Tell us what you're doing, what you're working on. Everybody else, if you got questions for Jacob Hansen about his religious bigotry, his homophobia, his sexism, his patriarchy, or Austin about his new mustache, like it's like Harry Potter mixed with chips from the 70s, just please send us a super chat and we'll do our best to read it online. And don't forget to like the stream as you guys are coming in. And without any further ado, guys, what's up, man? Long time, no talk. Tell us what's going on.
Well, first of all, I got to give credit to the mustache here. I did notice that when we got on the stream. I was like, oh, dang. Looking good, man. I like it. It's looking sharp.
I want to be able to look back on family photos and my kids to be like, you had a mustache? So it's more for just like future nostalgia. It's kind of a weird concept.
Yeah, mustaches they're making a comeback pretty big. I think the top. No.
Well,
you know what it was? It was Top Gun.
They are. I don't know if I agree
Top
with
Gun.
It was Top Gun.
Have you seen the new Top Gun Maverick movie where like the guy has the mustache and he looks really good? And I was like looking at my wife during the whole movie and being like, hey, you have to think clean thoughts too.
They're shirtless on the beach. Yeah.
So they're making a comeback. You can go for that look.
Dude, I'm digging, man. I'm digging.
What have we been working on? So, the Joseph Smith story. So I
just noticed this.
What?
Austin?
What
do you got behind you, dog?
What? Oh, I'm just keeping score here. I'm just keeping score. That's all.
Wait.
That's all. You're at 12 days right now, Card. Since your last church office building ran.
I didn't notice that.
Gonna put that right here.
I went through all of pre-production without noticing it. It's because it's people can't see, but it was
this over it. That's why I didn't want my mic here.
Oh, that's why I didn't want to move the mic. That is hilarious.
Is it really been 12 days, or did you just throw that up there?
No, I think you're on a pretty good streak. I haven't watched the last couple, so I'm not
I
sure.
think he might have failed. I think he might have failed
really?
last night. I'm pretty sure we're at day one.
Okay, well, day one. There you go.
One day. Yeah, no,
Day
yesterday he failed it. He did.
That's funny. Okay,
we'll see if we can get to double digits, though. That's the challenge.
Okay. Wow. We'll try it. We'll baby steps. We'll start with this one.
Oh man.
Okay. So tell us what's going on, man.
All right. Well, before I do, not to continually bury the lead, if I like fall out of my chair and start screaming, I threw out my back yesterday. If anyone has ever done that before, like, it's terrible. I've never done that before, where you like start getting back spasms in your lower back and it literally just like takes you to the floor and makes you scream. Like, that was what I did last night. And so today I'm barely walking. So if I look funny in this live stream, that's kind of why. And I'll try and mute myself if I start to scream in pain as a spasm hits. So anyway, without any further ado, the Joseph Smith project that we've been working on. So essentially, we're going to tell Joseph Smith's story from beginning to end. I feel like there's a lot of people hear a lot of the anecdotes about his life, like little parts of Joseph Smith's life, but they don't actually ever get to like see it from beginning to end. I feel like what inspired it was kind of a combination of having read things like Rough Stone Rolling and others where I've kind of seen the full picture of Joseph's life rather than just the stories. And then combine that with the movie The Chosen. So The Chosen has this way of sort of taking the New Testament and bringing it to life by making it into one sort of coherent story that just has a beginning, middle, and end, and you kind of follow it all the way through. And that's kind of what this is meant to be. It's meant to kind of give people that like you're with Joseph Smith going through his life, seeing what he did, what was going on, what were the problems he was having, and that should contextualize kind of everything you hear about. So I would say this: people might be disappointed that we don't go into a ton of depth on certain kind of individual issues, because individual issues you could write a whole book about, but rather I want to give, we're going to hit on those things. We just may not go into as much depth simply because we have to keep the narrative rolling, because the whole idea is to give the big narrative. And then when you hear about those individual stories, you understand the context that they fall into, something like that.
Okay. Rock on, dude. So like, what's it going to be like? Like I could kind of envision that going like different ways. Well, first off, what's Joseph Smith look like? A yoked alpha Chad? Have you done AI art? You know what I'm saying?
We do have some AI pictures, but they look more historical and boring. But yeah, we've used some AI here and there. A lot of the footage comes from movies that have been done of Joseph Smith, or Mormon messages, or just like all the videos you can think of that the church has produced. If we're talking about the translation, you can go through 5 different videos and pull some clips and kind of use some of that. We've got photos, we've got art, we've got quotes that are read from people's histories. Just trying to keep it visual and I don't know, keep it going with whatever the narrative is telling. So
yeah. And Austin's the man I'm kind of producing the story. I'm doing the research. I'm also working with actual historians on this, like, to make sure that as I do my research and write the scripts on this, that it's not just, when people say scripts, and I've been talking about The Chosen, this isn't like a live action Chosen type movie. It is me narrating the story of his life as though I were telling you, as though I was Joseph Smith's friend who had been with him through all of these different things. And then I'm pulling out a lot of first person quotes. Like, for example, these first episodes are very early in Joseph's life. So the main source that we have on that, there's really 2 main primary sources you get on Joseph's life kind of prior to him really going public. And that's going to be his mother, who tells her story and wrote it down. And then the anti-Mormon track, E.B. Howe, he gets a bunch of sort of anti-Mormons to go and say how much they hated Joseph Smith for whatever reasons. And so you have these kind of, or Joseph himself speaking, or Martin Harris speaking for himself, right? Or others. So there's a lot of kind of first person perspective mixed into it. So it isn't just my take on it. It's kind of backed up with Joseph's voice and the voice of his mother and others.
Wow, dude. So can we just play like a little portion of this? I see that you've released part 1, the preface already. Is part 2 out, or what? I want to give people a little bit of a taste. You know what I'm saying?
Ooh.
So should we just run a little bit of the preface?
Yeah, we'll give people time to hop in. I can drop a clip of the episode coming out tomorrow.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's give them a little. Let's right here. They'll get a little teaser.
Yeah, I'll get you something.
Okay, sick. So I just want to make sure I got this right. Like I'm putting this on the screen right here so that everybody at home can see. But I am here on your YouTube channel, okay, and you'll notice I have premium. I'm really proud about that. Okay, guys, it's like the Rolls Royce of millennial YouTube. I'm just
funny.
kidding.
I have premium on my personal channel that I just watch videos on, but not on the actual Thoughtful Page channel. So every time I have stupid ads.
Yeah. You know what's funny is I had the exact same problem too, and I finally just caved and I bought the $29.99 YouTube family. So that you get 5 family members. And so one is my personal, one is Ward Radio, one is Young Ward Radio, one is Women of Ward Radio. And then one is I think I gave it to like my wife so she could watch.
I was about to say, you better have Brittany in there, bro. Like, if you get the family pack and you don't include Brittany.
Yeah, so just to not have to watch ads when I'm beta testing all of my videos and everything, I just ended up signing for the YouTube Premium Family Package. So that's funny. So anyway, I'm here on your website really fast, and or not your website, but I'm here on part 1 for Good or Evil. If I click on Thoughtful Faith, you can see the preface is right here going up, which is just saying what it's going to be. And then you've got the upcoming, I guess, part 2, which is basically the first kind of full length episode, it sounds like, right?
Mm-hmm.
It goes through first vision all the way till the first vision.
It basically all the way through just after the first vision. It's just before he goes to bed on September the 22nd, 1823. I know my dates now.
The stories you'll be less familiar with, though, are like his family situation. What were their religious experiences as he was a young child? What was the context there? And there's some pretty cool stories that I hadn't heard, and that are right in that first episode or second episode.
Okay, cool, sick. Well, have you put that in the Discord, or can I read a couple of super chats right here really fast?
Super chats.
Okay, cool. And then also I see that there's a comment in the Discord, Jacob, that it looks like you wanted to react to.
I wanted to share this. Came up on the preface video today, and this was really cool, especially considering that this is a story of Joseph Smith thing that we're putting together. And go ahead and check out this comment. Go ahead and you can just read it. Read what this guy says.
I got to zoom it out here because it's a small screenshot. But okay, this is from Dalton Ray 5231. 2 minutes ago. Wow, this is recent, bro. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
You probably took it like as soon as it happened. But okay, I'm an atheist that came across your channel from Alex O'Connor. I never gave the LDS faith a proper acknowledgement, but your channel and others like Stick of Joseph have helped to broaden my understanding of the religion. While I don't think my beliefs will change, my perception definitely has. Cheers and thank you. Wow.
So to have an atheist watching a video about Joseph Smith leaving a comment like that, like, that's pretty awesome. I have to say, like, that's why I'm doing this. Like, and one of the things with this series, when you watch it, this is a series you could show to anyone. I'm not, and I say this right in the preface, I'm not trying to tell Joseph Smith's story in a way that's just like, hey, let's just talk about all the good stuff and blow it up to be let's leave out any of the parts that are awkward or uncomfortable. It's like, no, just lay the whole thing out. And then I'll just let people decide, because one of the reasons I'm doing this is because
you're pretty known for being kind of afraid of controversy sometimes, so
yeah,
we'll see.
I just think his is a story that I don't care if you believe or if you don't. It's just a cool story. Like, if this is all a fraud, it's one of the most wild and insane frauds ever perpetrated in human history. And that in and of itself is crazy and cool and interesting. Like, no one should finish this video series and be like, that was lame. No, they'll finish it and go, that was either this guy pulled off the most insane thing ever, or something was really going on here.
Well, also, I notice atheists kind of like many of the consistent ones, at least, that are, intellectually honest, are obsessed with a certain rubric of naturalistic verification. And if you're going to be very robust in your approach to, verifying the facts and the history and consulting with experts as you make this thing as historically accurate as possible, that's going to attract people who oftentimes disqualify the creeds or, the early resurrection in ancient scripture for lack of, primary sources and, criterion of embarrassment applications and all these other, historical rubrics I don't know what the plural of rubric is, rubricae or something like that. That's going to attract them to your type of production. And I see that you're loading up with experts here. Who have you consulted in this, bro? Like who's
I'm wondering if I should mention my sources out loud.
Well, I mean, it
just because
brings
if there is something
right?
wrong, I don't want them to catch crap for it. But one of them may have been on your show multiple times talking about Joseph Smith, so we'll leave it at that. Is one of the main ones that I'm consulting.
Oh, okay. You're talking about who is the ex-anti?
He may have a lot to say about the lost pages. Let's just leave it at that.
Oh, that one.
So
okay, cool.
the basic idea is this.
Well, what about? Hold on.
I will put together my
wait. No. I gotta know. You're missing one here. Have you consulted anybody with some serious credentials, like perhaps Dr. John DeLynn or Dr. Julie Hanks? Like, have you consulted Julie Hanks yet?
I have not. I have not consulted with her on this project.
Okay. Dr. Natasha Heifer. What was it again?
Heifer.
Whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? I can't remember the names of these people. It seems like
I call her Dr. Masturbation. She's just like, the church needs to let you masturbate. Like, okay.
Here's
I'm
the
gonna get
line.
excommunicated on this. Like,
Carden goes right up to the line, and then Jacob is running and dives. You know what I'm saying? Oh, that is too funny. Okay, so yeah, I can see why a lot of people who are interested in what really happened are interested in your documentary instead of like the dogma against Joseph Smith or the dogma for him.
One thing with this, I will say, and I guarantee there are going to be people that take issue with different things. The polygamy deniers, of course, will, but that's just because they
love it.
they're just going to take issue with everything because anyway. That's a different thing. But the problem with the story of Joseph Smith is I've actually dug into the primary sources and really kind of dug deep, is that everybody who lived, from anyone who knew Joseph Smith, the last ones who actually met him personally probably died in the early 1900s. Okay. That means from about 1830 until 1910, any person who knew him talked about him. Everybody had an opinion. Everybody had a story. Okay. And when you're dealing with that level of people talking about him, there's just insane amounts of stuff that's being said about him, both, again, for good and evil. Okay. And people that go all the way from ranging to almost too much, like they like him too much, where it's kind of weird, to like people that think this guy is Satan, worse than Satan. Like, it is a wide range. And so if you are a historian, you have to deal with your own biases, obviously, but then you also have to deal with the fact that everybody has a bias about this guy from the start. And so you have to sort through that history. And what emerges is there's kind of two parallel stories. And you have to look at the primary source documents, get as close to the sources as you can, and then try and make the best judgment call you can as to which ones are the most reliable. Now, that isn't to say there isn't a narrative that emerges that is the most historically accurate based on kind of good historical reasoning. And there are lots of good scholars that have done this. And I've relied on both faithful people like Don Bradley, Richard Bushman, as well as people like Dan Vogel and Fawn Brody. You know, I'm consulting all of these people, but I'm not just consulting them. I'm going to the footnotes. I'm looking into the primary sources, and then what I'm constructing is what I believe I could defend historically based on the sources that I've read and the people I've consulted with who are experts as to what actually happened. Everything that I talk about in this documentary, so far as I can tell, is going to be pretty freaking solid stuff. And if it is shaky, people get mad that I don't go more into certain things. But one of the reasons I don't go more into those certain things is because those records aren't as like reliable. They're a little more hearsay, or there's more gray area there. I'm trying to stick to the stuff that we pretty much know for sure, that's generally agreed upon, lay out the whole story from start to finish, and then you guys can go back and dig into the things that are there, but but at least then when you do, you'll know the story from beginning to end. And the biggest thing, you can step back and look at the entire story and evaluate the entire story. It's a crazy story, and it's fascinating.
I mean, it is going to be like watching one of the Lord of the Rings extended edition by the time all the episodes are out. So I don't know if you want to watch the entire story in one sitting, but
yeah. How long do you think we'll have? How long do you think we'll have, Austin?
We're what? Each episode is roughly 20 minutes, besides the preface, and we've got 4 ready to go. So
I think by the time we're done, there'll be about 8.
Yeah, I think we're going to be at 2 hours of content. It's going to be.
I think we're going to be more than that, actually.
It'll be more?
I think we're going to be close. I think we'll be somewhere between 2 to 4 or 3 to 4 hours of content. But here's the thing: you could try and read Rough Stone Rolling. You know what I mean? Like sit down, and that'll take you a while. Or you can watch this or listen to this over the course of a couple days, and it's like, oh,
and
I now know his history.
Jacob did. I did.
Yeah.
It's it's got some emotion in there. It's got my 2 favorite things about the format, and this was Jacob's idea, was to put Joseph's age on the screen. So whenever Jacob is talking and we're going through a period of his life, it says the year so you can kind of keep track, but also just gives you context to like how old was he? Like, well, and immediately when you're, oh, he was a 20-year-old. Oh, okay. And that gives you a different picture in your mind rather than this historical, like 33-year-old jacked guy that the church put out in a movie a long time. Like, it really helps you realize, like, oh, okay, this was like a young dude. And then the other part too is just getting the context of his family, the human elements, the stories that like you don't read in Joseph Smith history. He lost some kids, you know, his brother died. Like some of these things that would have impacted him probably more than a lot of the stories we hear and we read about, because that was like his family, his livelihood, his everything. So I love that we put together the spiritual things happening that we always talk about with the human life that kind of was going on. And I love it.
Okay, cool, my man. So really fast, I've got some clips here. It looks like you put 2 clips, if I'm not mistaken. Looks like you put 2 clips here in the Discord. So I'm actually just going to take a stab at playing the first one right here. Does that sound like a plan? It has the little graphic on that says 1796 to 1805 Joseph pre-birth. Is that the first clip right there?
Yep. Here we go. We're going to learn a little bit. This is how it starts when we get started in tomorrow when the episode drops.
Oh, and also, so I don't commit the error that you often commit on your channel, Jacob. Do I have permission to play your copyrighted content on this stream?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, you do.
See there
Play away.
now you can't flag me. You know what I'm saying? Now you can't flag me. So anyway, I'm just kidding with you, bro. But here we go. Jacob Hansen in For Evil or For Good. Boom.
Lucy was in her late 20s and early 30s, and she brought into the world 4 more children, including Joseph Smith Jr. in December of 1805. The Smiths were an industrious and tight-knit family, and eventually they found some level of stability while living in New Hampshire in 1811. With Alvin now about 13 years old and Hiram around 10, the Smiths began to look toward the education of their children and think of how they might prepare for the future of their family longer term. However, tragedy struck again after 2 years in New Hampshire. Typhoid fever broke out in 1813 in their community, and soon all 7 of the Smith children, ages 1 to 15, were hit by the illness. But the hardest hit was 9-year-old Sophronia. Eventually, the fever got so bad that Lucy and Joseph Sr. were nearly convinced that they were about to lose their little girl.
Whoa.
Lucy later described the events that she experienced at her daughter's bedside.
As she thus lay, I gazed upon her as a mother looked upon the last shade of life in a darling child. In this moment, my husband and myself clasped our hands, fell upon our knees by the bedside, and poured out our grief to God in prayer and supplication, beseeching him to spare our child yet a little longer.
Upon finishing the prayer, it seemed that their little girl had stopped breathing. In agony, Lucy took her in her arms and began pacing the floor in grief. The memory of this experience haunted her.
Are you a mother who has been bereft of a child? Feel for your heartstrings and then tell me how I felt with my expiring child pressed to my bosom.
Those in the room told her that it was of no use until seemingly.
Whoa. So what happened, bro?
Is that it? Is that,
that might be. Oh, I guess you gotta. Oh, darn.
I guess you guys gotta watch tomorrow.
No, dog, you gotta tell us at least this part so we know.
You gotta watch tomorrow.
This is a spiritual cock block. What is going on, man? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, man.
This is a historical. No, for real though. Like what happened?
It drops tomorrow. It drops tomorrow.
You have to watch tomorrow.
You're gonna have
guys.
15. I'm not asking you to spoil the whole thing. Just this one. What happens?
You'll find out tomorrow.
Man, you are the worst. It's like when freaking Joe Rogan had the chick that wrote the book on Operation Paperclip on. You know, jeez, man.
But one of the things that I tried to do was one of the things I read. So that's all coming from Lucy Mack's history. So Lucy Mack Smith, Joseph's mother, wrote a history of her family. And there are some stories in there that just knocked me over. Like everything from like heart-wrenching, like heartbreaking stories that these, I mean, this is just a window into human life in the like 17 and 1800s. Like the way our ancestors used to live is like, it's gnarly. And you get to kind of get up close and personal with this stuff. But then there are other stories that are like, in one of the later episodes, I'll probably get into the story when Joseph has a brother named William. William's kind of a hothead. And he's the guy he actually beat up Joseph. Him and Joseph got in a fist fight.
Yeah.
And like, he actually beat up his older brother pretty badly. So, but he was kind of a hothead. Well, there were these debt collectors who came and they were kind of calling in the debts on the Smith family just to harass them. And his mom is there, and there were people like taking their stuff. And he pulls, I forget, he pulled off as like an ice pick or something and was like, get out of here. And he's like 19 and he like chases these guys out of the house. And Lucy like tells this story about how her son just like scared off all these guys that came to like take their stuff. It's like, again, like I never heard that story. That's awesome. And these people become way more real to you. They become like us.
So I served in Buffalo, New York, for a lot of my mission. And there's this plaque on the pier. It's just like this random church history site. You think it's like a city plaque or something, but it's like a church plaque. And you go up to it, and the reason it's there is because when the church was sent to move to Kirtland, basically from New York or whatever, they get to the harbor or Erie Lake or whatever,
Canal.
right?
Yeah.
They get to the Erie Canal. It wasn't the canal. It's the Lake Erie, right? So they get to Lake Erie. Terrible weather, and it's frozen over. And they're like, oh shoot, like what are we supposed to do? And they're kind of like downtrodden. And like, check this out. Lucy Mack is just insane. So she they're all depressed. The steamboat's waiting there. There's no way it's gonna move. Ice happening here. And people are complaining. Smith worried about blah, 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 blah. Here we go. She recounted. First she tells them, like, have faith. You know, this we call ourselves Latter-day Saints, and I profess to have come out from among the world for the purpose of serving God with a determination to serve him with her whole might, mind, and strength at the expense of all earthly things. She gives this just amazing sermon, like pumps them up, hypes them up. Who in this country has been hungry? Who has lacked anything as our circumstances would admit of? Have I not set food before you every day and made you as welcome as my own children? She's hyping them up. And then all of a sudden, like a noise, like a bursting thunder, the ice like parts. It like cracks and it parts, and they like go on their ship and they go their way. And she's just hyping them up. It's like, she is so cool. And the way she writes is amazing.
You want to talk about a good like icon for women in the church? Lucy Mack is up there. And she is not a pushover. Her stories are incredible. And by the way, that exact story you're talking about, I know exactly what you're talking about because I just read that part as I'm researching the stuff for my latest episode that I'm working on. And it is an incredible story I'd never heard. So cool. And it's the story of the saints leaving New York to go to Kirtland. And she basically was like leading the charge. And a bunch of people were like complaining and stuff. And she's like, stop whining. Like, we're doing this, guys. Like, we're we're gonna do whatever the Lord
So
wants
wait.
us to
So
do.
I want to make sure I got this right. She like split the Red Sea, but in Lake Erie and with ice instead of with Egyptians. What?
Basically,
More or less.
gives a very faith-filled, fiery sermon about like, guys, don't be downtrodden. Like, have faith, and then the ice parts, and they like go on their way. It's crazy.
Okay, so before we
Right.
go any further, I just got to really make sure that I acknowledge a couple of the super chats here. First off, Fonzie D, thanks for joining the channel. Fonzie D, we got another member in the Ward Radio Wigwam. Everybody that wants to welcome Fonzie D to Ward Radio, please make sure you put a W in the chat for Fonzie D. Also, everybody that has been gifted memberships by Mary Lou Howarth, all right, and others need to make sure that they you have to put your payment info in so that it renews. So make sure that you renew your membership, or else then after a month it just goes down, and then also it shows up as one less sub on my channel. You know what I'm saying? So don't take my channel and renew the what's it called? Renew the membership if you don't mind. And Mr. GTPJ says, loved the Easter video. Keep waiting for Dr. JH. No, kept waiting for Dr. JH. Oh, yeah. How come you didn't invite Julie Hanks to speak in the Easter video? I find this very gender biased. There was not a 50-50 mark here. You know, it just...
We had the token representation though, right? We had the token.
Oh,
female.
Ashley Stone. Okay.
We had Stephen Jones, so we got some diversity.
Oh,
Jacob's just checking the boxes. That's all.
He was your diversity read, huh? And then
I'm not sincere.
No,
I
he
just do everything
handpicked-
for the DEI enforcers.
He does it for DEI.
and what was
right.
Parker Walbeck, your token establishment
Rich
guy,
guy.
or
Token, yeah.
oh, so your diversity, your equity,
No,
inclusion
he picked people
of the
who,
underrepresented wealthy YouTube stars. You know what I'm saying? And what was I your token Slav? Was I your token Slav?
Heretic.
Guy on the fringe.
Okay, so it was diverse. And by the way, I noticed that the only time in the only take and the only word that I mispronounced is the one that you kept in the edit. So thank you.
Oh, nice. There you go.
Thank you.
Austin did the edit on that. Everyone should know.
I
If you
did-
like
I
that
did.
edit,
My
it was an
team did,
amazing
though.
edit.
Denver. Shout out to Denver. He was the lead editor on that one. So yeah,
Nice.
Pretty good stuff.
Okay, so I want to know more about these stories, bro. Like, what are the most BA stories that you have come up with? Because like in Mormonism, some of our lack of historical literacy and symbolic literacy and the depth of our understanding of like these formational myths and stories comes from a dereliction of duty and leadership, predominantly that coming out of the church office building. Do you want to move your
Just let it be known.
yeah,
We're updating.
We tried.
you tried.
We'll
Okay,
give it
cool.
Another shot tomorrow. Thank you.
There we are. Okay. So sometimes our lack of historical literacy comes from a dereliction of duty on those that would be instructing us, right?
So predictable.
And other times it comes from natural consequences of just having a large group of people, you know, that are trying to instruct each other in the basics of the faith. Oftentimes you have a tendency to settle to the lowest common denominator, right? And so I can see why a lot of these stories are oft repeated, but then also why others might fall to the wayside. As you're like studying everything about Joseph Smith, what are some golden nuggets of verified historical truth that you found where you're just like, man, we need to tell more of that story?
So it's funny. I actually, there are individual stories that are just super cool, and I can mention some, but it's actually the overall story. It's the whole thing.
Okay.
When you step back and like we're talking about the age thing. Okay, Joseph, I think it was 23 or 24 when he announces that he's going to build a city in Missouri and like take all of these people out there and build a city. Like I'm like, who does that? Like that's just like the audacity. The one of the wild things when you understand the whole context of the story is how incredibly like quickly it changes. So Joseph is just like cruising along. He's just kind of like a average farm kid. And then all of a sudden he like from the age of like 17 to 23, all of a sudden he goes from just like nobody to like, I'm going to found cities in the West. And like he's converting people that are his employers and who are other ministers. And like, it's just weird. I mean, imagine it's a kid in your high school or something starts just like converting. Again, the story itself is so wild. And then there's also the understanding of like, what was Joseph doing? The first part of his life, Joseph's just cruising along, trying not to like have his family get kicked off their farm. Then he starts having the visions with the angel Moroni and others. And then it's all about the record, right? It's all about this book. And then the book is done. And then it's like, and now I'm supposed to like found a church. And he does. And it just, and then the second half of it is really all about this idea. It isn't even really about founding a church. See, one of the things we get wrong about Joseph Smith and some people is that he wanted to start like a church or a congregation or whatever. He had a vision, whether you believe that vision came from God or not, that was wildly huge. It was this vision of Zion. It was the vision of like remaking the world. You're like a 20-year-old nobody, and you're talking about revolutionizing the world, and you're talking about these visions of just that totally transform theologies, that totally transform all sorts of different things. And so for the rest of his life, if there was one word to describe the work of Joseph Smith, it was Zion. He wanted to establish Zion. He wanted to build the kingdom of God on earth into a specific group of people that would cohere together. And Bushman at the end of his biography, I think he says it right. He says the enduring legacy of Joseph Smith, even from a secular perspective, is the Mormon people. This guy created a people, a whole, and in history, you don't have many people that do that. Like the only one I can, Muhammad, and there's a few others that have created literal like new ethnic groups of human beings because they were so sort of wild in their vision. Now, that's the whole thing is, well, what was Joseph's vision? Was it he came up with this? Or was he actually channeling something or encountering things that were from another dimension or whatever you want to call it, some spiritual realm? Did God actually interact with this man in some way and inspire what he was doing? And that's kind of the question that when people are done with this, even the person that's secular can watch this because it's historical. And at the end of it, you can say, make up your own mind. Okay, you can look at the story that I'm going to put out and say, look, I can see where he was a fraud here. There's a connection to his dad's dreams and it was all a family thing, or he did some magic seer sown stuff. And you can try and make that case.
If you're a beta,
that he was inspired. You're right. But what I'm saying is that but I think the weight of it rests on what emerged out of this story. We emerged from it. At the end of this whole thing, I'm not trying to tell Joseph's story so much, because after this I'm doing Brigham Young's story, and what it's going to really turn into is that you're going to realize this isn't the story of Joseph. This is the story of us. This is where your ancestors came from. This is what they believed. This is what like built the Intermountain West. This is what created this entire movement that decided who we married and like the kind of life that we live is all rooted around this story and this vision of this person. And the only question is, was he the actual source of it? And I think when you actually watch the story, my personal take is, I don't think he's the guy that, I think the very earliest converts to the church in these early episodes, and Austin, you might remember this in the fourth episode that we just finished up, the Emma and the others, the reason they believed Joseph was because they knew Joseph. And they were like, there's no way this is Joseph.
Yeah.
Like the Book of Mormon, that is not him. And this whole, like, this is so out of the ordinary. And he's doing things that are just so sort of incredible that we believe that he's actually being inspired by God in all this. And I still think that to some extent that can be the question today, because it's either it came from Joseph or it came from somewhere else.
Okay, so dude, this is so intriguing. I got so many questions. Two really fast that I can think of. So do you feel like you've come to, like, you know how Gordon B. Hinckley says, I never saw him or met him, but I feel like I've come to know him as a man. Would you say that like you've come to know in a much deeper way the prophet Joseph Smith?
Austin, you go ahead and go on this one first.
And then I got a follow-up question for that. So
yeah, I as I've gotten to know, especially the stories of his life, the personal stories, the family stories, that's what I'm very drawn to. Because I see his dad going to debtor's prison because he wouldn't deny the Book of Mormon. And I see his family getting persecuted because they were like, no, this stuff is legit. And those stories just hit me so hard. I love it. I haven't done as much of the reading and research, anything past when he left Palmyra, because I served my mission in Palmyra. So I got a lot of the context there. Past that, it's, I've read a few books here and there, but I haven't gone into the primary sources the same way Jacob has. But what I can say is, as we've put together the story, at least until the Book of Mormon part, telling it and seeing the whole context, absolutely, I feel closer, and I feel some of the excitement that they must have felt in the early days too. That's what I think is so fun. It's like you see this and you're like, oh, I'm pumped. Like, this is happening. And yeah.
And I was going to say there's my favorite thing that I've got to do in this whole project. The thing that I've enjoyed the most is we kind of hear about the prophetic stuff, like you're saying, but it's the personal stories about the man that make me realize, like, he was one of the boys. In fact, there's this really famous line where someone said that Joseph said to him once, something along the lines of like, when I'm with the boys, I like to make as much fun as I can, something like that, because he was out like playing like ball or something with a bunch of young men. And, Carden, you're somebody who, when we all get together, we like to kind of have a good time and laugh and be like, I realized Joseph would have been one of the boys. Like, he would have been.
Sweet.
He very much was. He liked to laugh. People said he was really cheerful and kind of funny and would make jokes, and he enjoyed a good time with other people. He was not a weak guy. He was known to be big and strong and a good wrestler.
So basically he wouldn't be able to run the young men's program of the same church that he formed.
It's already at zero. Carden, the counter is already at zero.
Hey, I can't go any lower. We need a negative.
It's
we just need to count. We should be counting how many times he rants rather than.
Oh, okay, cool. See, that wasn't a rant. That was a dig.
Okay. Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? That was just a dig. Okay.
Hey, Carden, what do we have to do as far as likes or super chats in order to unveil 2 new Saint candles?
Okay. Well, that's what we're gonna do. Hold on. I'm gonna put a goal up right now of 10 super chats of any color, all the colors, in the next 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and then we will reveal 2 new Saint candles. All right, exclamation mark. Start goal. That's going on right now. And without revealing them, hold them up. You have 2 new Saint candles.
For those who are not aware, I live in Utah, and so there's a very large organization here who has been gifting these candles to really designate that we got some saints up in the chat. We got some saints in the Ward Radio Wigwam. The first few candles were of Carden Ellis. You got yours there, and Saint Ellis and Our Lady
Keepers of the Chats.
Our Lady of Perpetual Super Chats.
Yeah.
And then Carden is patron saint of the boomers and live streams and something like that, right?
Yeah, I'll take it.
And today we have Saint Luke and Saint Jacob.
Oh,
Two new to add to the collection here.
Oh, and you're going to
boy.
reveal those if we get
And
10
I'll
of these
reveal
super
them.
chats. Okay.
I'll bring
well,
them to the studio. Add to your little patron saint shrine there.
Okay,
is
well, we got
fantastic.
the first one of the 10, and I'm going to read up on the last 3 that came before we set the goal. So, Rock Family says, just finished my apologetics class, 10 weeks. Everyone loved it and wants me to teach it again right away. Several members say it saved their testimony. Jacob, you inspire me. Cardin, you motivate me.
Wow. Well, thank you very much. That's awesome.
Dude, Rock Family, I'm telling you, like, I will show up to the next one. Like, if you're in the continental United States or Hawaii and there's a cheap hotel nearby, like, I will, dude, I want to see this.
Hey, Cardin, let's see if we can coordinate it. We can go together and show up and crash their class.
Dude, imagine if all of a sudden just like Ward Radio walks in. You know what I'm saying? Just like they're teaching the apologetics course. And they're like, how to approach and engage lovingly with those that think differently. Then Cardinellis turns the corner and is like, tell them they're a bunch of betas, lying sacks of, you know, saying all this. And like, wait, no,
Cardin,
this is
I
not
actually
what we
want to get
planned.
invited to this. Don't wreck it for us.
They've been trying to build bridges, Garden. Luke and Jacob.
Oh, yeah. And what is that gotten us?
What do I do? Do I need to put out a fire? What are we talking about? I'm like 15 minutes behind.
Yeah,
the
all this
stream.
bridge building, all it's done is neutered our temple ceremonies and then made it so that everybody that hates us is emboldened to hate us even more and get more of what they want.
Zero, Cardin.
can't do
It's
anymore.
already zero.
Luke, just so you know, we're trying to track. In case you missed it, we're trying.
I
to
saw
track,
that part.
Okay,
I saw that part. And yes, Cardin did miss it yesterday.
Days since church office building rant for those who.
Okay.
There you go.
It took me about 3
Am I that
minutes. It's like
predictable?
the COB. What is COB? I was like, oh, yep, church
It's a
office
little
building.
cryptic there.
Okay, so we also got another super
Wait,
chat.
what thing were we talking about that I'm apparently doing with Jacob that Cardin's messing up?
The Rock Family
We're trying to build.
apologetics
We're trying to
course.
build bridges.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
going to that Christian conference. And
Mm-hmm.
No. Cool, man.
There's a lot of purple going on in this stream. I
Yeah.
just noticed. Like,
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. So I helped y'all build your studio. So I had to, just make it just the deeper. If you mix yellow and blue together, what do you get? Purple.
Purple.
It's a regal color. It's easy on the eyes. Austin, I think, is now fixing his studio, so it's purple.
Yeah, dude.
So anyway, Mads, welcome to Basic Celestial Ticket. Telestial Ticket. Mads has just joined our channel. Mads, everybody, let's put a W in the chat for Mads. Thank you very much. Also, Tanner Smith says, looking forward to this series. Jacob would love to see one as well for Brigham Young. Members are far too quick to throw him under the bus.
absolutely. I would say that one. I'm probably more excited for that one, just because less people know the stories, and they are just as awesome.
It's freaking.
They might have a little bit less sort of historical significance and like the broader plan of salvation of all mankind, but as far as like for the church's establishment, Brigham Young is the reason the church kept on going.
Hey, you know who I actually think
friggin' Giga Chad.
Yeah, do you know who I think would actually be a very interesting ally on that project and very good for it? Kwaku. Which a lot of people might originally think, wait, what? But Kwaku actually has a lot. It's interesting because he sounds a lot better on our podcast than he does writing on X, obviously. But I've talked to Kwaku in depth about this. And he's like, I disagree with a lot of what Brigham Young has said and so on and so forth. And I think people abuse the worst of his quotes. But he's like, but I also know what it takes to get a ton of people moved for these huge parties that he throws. You know what I'm saying? And I know what it's like to direct massively high volumes of people with 15 different egos going 15 different directions and everything like that. And he's like, yeah, he screwed up a lot, but he also did so much so well. Nobody else could have done this but him.
It
You know what I'm
seems like
saying?
history, there's kind of periods where history calls upon the type of person that's usually not accepted in polite society to do something that only they could do. General George S. Patton is a great example of this. He kind of had
Yes.
like a nothing career. It was between the wars. The army was really being cut. He was out in the middle of nowhere. And then World War II happens, and like he's the guy they need. And he ends up being one of the top leaders in Europe, military genius. And as the war, but he's just like brash. He's like smacking soldiers in the infirmary because they're like
And
being
accusing
wimps
them
or
of
something like that. Yeah,
accusing them of cowardice.
He's giving expletive-filled speeches that they even had to cut, trim down on
Not
for the
taking notes.
R-rated Patton film.
I want to say that's like Carden. I feel like Carden's our man of that era, just pushing the boundaries, saying what you
Kind
should
of,
be. You
yeah.
gotta feel a kinship for Brother Brigham over there, and George S. Patton, and
Then
yeah.
he died in a weird car accident right when the war ended. It was like his time was done. His era, it's almost like a Western film. Like the cowboys have to come in and conquer the territory. So then the normal people can move in and kind of kick the cowboys out because they're not polite society anymore. That was Brigham Young.
Okay,
And
but
we
who do you,
needed him.
But who do you cast as Brigham Young? Who do you
Ooh.
cast as Brigham Young?
Well,
No-
it's a
no
documentary,
budget,
not a
whatever
narrative,
budget.
right?
I know, but who do you cast?
If you were,
I've been trying to figure this out.
Well,
Who
it
is
depends
the-
on what age. Do you cast Salt Lake City Brigham Young standing up to the U.S. government, or do you cast Kirtland and Nauvoo era Brigham Young? Because I mean, he was
My favorite Brigham Young is like 1850s Brigham Young, where he's
Yeah.
not so young that he's still young, but he's
Yeah.
not so old that he's an old man. He's kind of in his bearded prime out there, like
Hey,
running
he's not
Deseret
fat
like a
yet.
friggin'
Yeah.
king. That's what I'm talking about.
like an alpha jet. So anyway, I actually think Kwaku would be a very, very interesting narrator for one of those, because then you would throw an absolute monkey wrench into the haters.
Actually, that would be super cool if I could get Kwaku to be my narrator. My
Like it's not just some Desnat thing. You know what I'm saying? It's not just some
Yeah. Tell
know,
his story, man.
yeah.
I'm
just
gonna
like,
talk with Kwaku about that. I'm gonna have him look at my scripts and see if he'd be comfortable, and if he wants to push back on it, maybe we can look at stuff
cool.
and debate it, so I get a real, because he's willing to like throw down on Brigham, and I want to be I want, when I do these, I want these to be historical. My thing is I get sick of us telling sort of the faithful story. It's like, I think, and I think it has its place, but I'm more like, let's just tell just the story, just tell it, and then let people decide. Because I hear, as I've been learning more about Joseph Smith and others, I end up relating to them way more, because I start realizing, like, I remember when I first started studying church history and I'm seeing all the like conflicts, and then I realized those are the same conflicts that go on in my ward. Like, this guy's got a big ego. This guy like is, marital problems or whatever. And it's like, wait a minute, they were the exact same group of people we were, but like, yet out of it, something beautiful grows. And so it kind of makes you feel like it's real and that you're still part of it. It's a story. It isn't a story that was, it's the story that's still going on. And Luke, actually, funny, one of the reasons I did this whole thing, Luke actually plays into this to a certain extent. Well, first I had done a documentary on, so I'll get to Luke in 1 second. There's actually one step before this. I had saw a thing about Christopher Columbus online that showed me a bunch of facts I never knew about him. And I was like, wait a minute. And so I started researching Christopher Columbus. I ended up realizing there was like a whole other story and all these people were criticizing him. And then I realized they didn't know anything about his whole story. They just knew these things that they had read online. And so I made a video series telling his whole story, because his story is just friggin' ridiculously, incredibly crazy. It's just like the coolest sailor story ever. So I already had done that. And then when Luke and I were we went to do the Trent Horn debate, and we were in Ohio. And I realized Kirtland was only 2 hours away. And so I was like, Luke, let's go to Kirtland. Let's go check it out. We had a day, so we went up there. And it was super fun. And as we drove away, we were listening to Praise to the Man as we we're driving through Kirtland, which was kind of fun. Luke had that rocking in the car.
Yep.
But before we left, and the reason that Spirit, I think, was there, so for a bunch of different reasons, there were two places that really impacted me. The first was the School of the Prophets. I went in to this room in the Whitney store. It's this little like closet practically. And I realized that out of that room came all of those historical figures that built the church, like Brigham Young and Wilford Woodruff, and all these guys were like in that room. And I was like, man, something crazy happened in this room. And then we went, I remember we were just outside of Joseph Smith's house, and we saw there was a graveyard right next door. So we went over and looked at it. As we're going through the graves, there's a little thing that said, like, had the directory of like what the different names are. And so we're looking at the S's, like, is there anybody here? And they're like, oh, this is where the Smith plot is. So we went over the Smith plot, and there were the twins, the grave of the twins that Joseph and Emma had lost.
Oof.
And I have twins. And it was one of those moments where it was like, it became real. And then there was, right next to that was the grave of Parley P. Pratt's wife. And he wrote this beautiful epilogue about her. And it was like, oh, like these are real people. They really existed. They really had these problems. This isn't just something I'm reading about in some storybook. And I think that was part of the reason that I felt a motivation to tell the story. I want to tell the story. You need to hear the whole story, not just the parts that people selectively choose to build faith or to tear down faith. Just the whole thing. And then you can look at it and go, wow, I don't care if it's true or not. It's in the sense of like religiously, this is an amazing story.
Yeah, one of the greatest derelictions of duty that we've had in our church, namely the church office building, besides its failure to start social media for the young men before February of 2024. Before that, put your counter on 0.
It's on
Austin.
0.
Oh, it's on
2
0
0.
already. Oh, 2 zeros. Okay. Besides that, actually, I really lament the fact that we have not started a culture of pilgrimage in our faith. Like if you go to the Middle East, especially the closer you get to Saudi Arabia, you'll see people on the Hajj, like actually doing the pilgrimage to Mecca, that some of them have saved up their entire lives to go. And they wear these like robes that are unique to the pilgrimage, and you realize, oh, this is somebody who's like actually on a journey. And a lot of them say that like I was never as connected to my faith as I was when I did the 3 walks around I can't remember how to pronounce the not the device, but the monument in Mecca, right? And
The Kaaba,
that's it. Yeah. So I look at how my spirituality was changed profoundly upon visiting Jerusalem with Hayden and Jackson Paul when we first were filming The Stick of Joseph, and just being in the Garden of Gethsemane, the Mount of Olives, seeing the Eastern Gate, going down La Via Dolorosa and all of that other stuff. It was just so profound how it just connected me more with Scripture. I thought, how do people like navigate normalcy, forget a faith crisis, but like normalcy without this connection? Like now that I have it, I can't believe how it feels after. It's just like that phrase, like nothing tastes as good as skinny feels, right? It's like nothing is as profound as like having experienced the pilgrimage feels spiritually. And I wish that maybe instead of focusing on some other things, we just focused on like getting youth to the Holy Land at least once between the age of 14 and 18. You know what I'm saying? Getting youth to go to Kirtland, getting them to go to like some kind of church history sites or something, because it just, you realize when the grave of the twins is sitting there, that when the crap hits the fan, there's no like, okay, I lost, let's take the cartridge out, blow it, stick it back in the Nintendo and try again. It's like, holy crap, no, I just lost twins for this faith, and it's gnarly, man. So we've got exactly 9 seconds left on the goal of super chats. There's one more super chat for you guys to get the revelation of the wait, we're going to continue this. Oh, we got 9 out of 10 super chats.
Oh, we get it?
We got 9 out of, at least YouTube is telling me, 9 out of 10 super chats.
I'm seeing it. I'm seeing 2. I'm seeing 2
You're
more.
seeing 2? Let's see here. Hold on. I'm going to go back. They, you know what? We're just going to give it to them anyway. Our audience is awesome. We're going to give it to them anyway. So, John Irving says, can't wait. I've been reading Saints Volume 1 for the past couple of weeks. Church history is amazing. Learning about the early saints is extremely edifying. I agree, John Irving. By the way, you guys, I'm going to burn through these really fast, so feel free to chime in and just speak up, Then
Saints
Ben,
is cool.
what'd you say?
I like how they did Saints. I like how they did Saints.
Saints is cool.
I know some people don't love it. I think that the thing that it has going for it is that it reads like a narrative. It reads like a book, and it allows for you to kind of enter the context even if you're not a historian. So,
Okay.
big fan of Saints.
I'm looking at Saints as one of the sources. It wasn't one of my main sources. It's funny. I'm actually not a huge fan of it. I think it's a great source for like really great stories individually, but like I like to see how it all connects together in a more, because it's jumping from person to person.
Right.
That's the problem with it. It
It's
is
not a
giving a
great
story, but it's
history-
not giving any one. There's no one narrative that's coming through it.
It's
not a great
it's
history
Saints.
of Joseph Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a great history of Joseph Smith, but it's a great story.
It is. It's a great story. If you wanted, I think that as long as people understand it as it's the story of the Latter-day Saints, we're not going to take one person's perspective like Joseph Smith's and make it the story. We're going to try and get the collection. I think the way to do it is like, so I've been telling people I want this docuseries to be sort of like the Rough Stone Rolling of YouTube. You can sit down in 4 hours, you can basically know the whole story of Joseph Smith. And now you know the story and the entire outline that's the backbone. I think then Saints builds all of the stories that are around Joseph's story.
It's
so
like
if
the world
Joseph is the
building.
middle of it, and then you add all those on, and now if you do both of those, like you're going to have a really good understanding of who we are and like where we came from. And it's incredible.
Yeah.
All right. Ben English also super chats saying Cardinellis : patron saint of the COB FTW for the win.
Gotta add that.
So I'm going to introduce myself from here on out as patron saint of the COB. Ben English, I do believe, is an employee of the COB who, he's the one that smuggles through the back door all of the cassette tapes and vinyl records and analog, it goes to different garage sales and just assembles Betamax and VHS tapes. So if the bureaucrats in the church office building ever feel like they're getting way too digital, he just like hands them like a VHS tape and they sniff it and they're like, oh, okay. Okay, reminds me of the good old days. You know what I'm saying? He's like, he's a drug dealer there. But anyway, just kidding. No, really cool guy. We met
from the church office.
Yeah, we met at the Firm Foundation conference, which was super fun this year. We got to go to that, guys. Okay, the Firm Foundation, right? I don't give a crap what you think.
What is Firm? Is Firm the Heartlanders?
Okay. Yeah,
it's the Heartlander.
But what's funny is, have you guys ever spoken at their conferences? Either one of you?
No,
dude, bro. It's not just a Heartlander conference. Like, they need to actually, I think their conference, and they would do so much better with their conference if they would just like lean into the independent Mormonism aspect of it, because it's really not a Heartlanders conference. It's really just an independent Mormonism conference. Everybody shows up. There's a dude in one corner that's like, colloidal silver cures everything, and like ivermectin and like carrot juice to kill cancer and like all that like holistic stuff, right? You know what I'm saying? And then there's this Hawaiian dude who's doing like traditional Hawaiian massage, and like he's got his booth set up there with like in the airport with put your face in the the little stand thingy, and they work on you there, next to a dude that's an author that's selling homeschooling books, next to a guy that's developed a better insulation out of like recycled rubber tires or something, and now has an entire line of outdoor backpacking gear, and yeah, there's probably 7 or 8 people that have written books on Book of Mormon evidences and geographic models. Boyd Tuttle, for example, showed through scientists in Sweden, they actually paid to do studies, and they showed that somehow not the majority, but like a very large portion of the copper found in tools of the Bronze Age in the Near East actually came from a reservoir in Michigan. And with 99.99999% accuracy, or whatever his statistic was, he was able to show that I don't know how you explain this other than intercontinental connection, and how convenient for the Heartland model if it came from Michigan or whatever, So some of it is like ostensible Heartland stuff, but the vast majority of it, it's like a libertarian convention. It's like anything and everything,
but with less weed.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of a wild, fun time, dude. There's like liberal Mormons, conservative Mormons, people dressed up as like Abraham Lincoln and Joseph Smith, like walking
Batman
around.
was there, wasn't he? Was Batman there?
Last firm conference, yeah, that was Jonah. But anyway, yeah, it's actually a lot of fun, dude. I think it's a blast, dude. So anyway, yeah, that was pretty awesome. Let's go back to the rest of these super chats, though. I want to make sure that everybody gets read here. Okay, top chat. I lost my spot here. Okay. Kale Chips. Oh, sorry. Doc says Lomo is a beta. I don't know who Lomo is, but I have a feeling a score was just settled.
He's sounding off in the chat.
Yeah. Kale Chips Vendetta says, excited to see all you do with this, Jacob. Really enjoyed all the activity last year. Luke saved the stream. Luke,
Wait, what?
Are you saving the stream, Luke?
This current stream right now?
Yeah, exactly.
Save us, Luke.
You were sent to save us.
I don't know what I saved you from. But
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Mary Lou
Ourselves.
Howarth says, I really enjoy the historical stories. Thanks for doing this, Jacob and Austin. Mads says, I like bringing up Brigham Young in Sunday school just to stir the pot. All right, I'll take
Always
it.
one of those guys.
Jonathan West, welcome to the Ward Radio Wigwam. We've received the records of one Jonathan West. Everybody would like to welcome Jonathan into the channel. Please make sure you put a W in the chat. And
W in the chat.
Yeah, Bat Peta says, long time lurker, first time super chatter. Love Ward Radio and the guests tonight. Glad to see your stream live, but it's hard to do due to the time difference between Cali and Virginia, where I live. Stay
Virginia.
strong. Yeah.
I live streamed from Virginia multiple times, and I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal, man. Smore0530 says, looking forward to the series with more to follow. Maybe format like Paul Harvey's Rest of the Story, Mystery Person.
Kind of a cool idea.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. And Nathan Fitzen says, schools don't teach about Columbus, so they're fake. And Jeffrey Harris says, Jacob, very excited about the series. Question, please comment on your upcoming episode that will be dedicated to the cup of cream. We need far more milk strippings related anecdotes. Oh, that's true. Do you bust out the milk strippings, bro?
I haven't got to
wasn't a
that.
Joseph
I haven't even got to that part yet. So it's still in my research phase to get to that one.
We'll air that one on Ward Radio.
But by the way, I will say this. One of the most interesting things to do when you study like a biography of a certain person is if you get multiple biographies by different authors and then you read the same time period. So when I do this study, for instance, I'm taking a number of years, like 1830 to 1834, and then I'll read different authors writing about those same periods. And it's really interesting because then you can see how different people describe the same events. And then what you do is you go back and you check their footnotes to see what the primary sources say. And then you can judge who you think is doing a better job of representing the primary source documents. And so that's more or less been my methodology with this. And I highly recommend that sort of a methodology if you really want to dive deep into something. It's actually really fun because then you're not just reading one book, you're kind of investigating how different people talk about the same events.
Okay, cool. Rock on. Your historiography is unimpeachable, my man. Unimpeachable. Tanner Smith says, but will we get the bucket of cream story? Looks like he's going to deliver. Doc says 10 out of 10. I think he might have been the 10th super chat. And then Kale Chips Vendetta says to like the stream. Now, before I read the last two super chats, we reached that 10 out of 10 mark. So, Austin, can you please reveal the two new patron saints?
We got ourselves Saint Jacob in his jiu-jitsu robes here. Saint Jacob, patron saint of debates, atheists, jujitsu, and Christopher Columbus. There you go.
That's a lot of things.
Yeah. These are collectible, by the way.
Those are fantastic.
All right.
I'm gonna get one of those.
And we've got it might
Yes.
not, but we've got Luke, cool-headed Luke, Saint Luke.
Go closer. Go closer. It worked better when you got really
I'm
close.
trying.
Or like get your face out of
You need to
Yeah,
put it in
yeah,
front
yeah,
of your
yeah,
face.
yeah.
There we go.
We
There he is.
We got a
Look at
map
that.
here. Got the Book of Mormon, and he is the patron saint of Mesoamerican geography model, sunglasses, and Bible bashing. So there you go.
Nice.
Got our two new
Make-
Latter-day patron saints.
Dude, I cannot wait until we have the whole collection.
Line them up on a shelf.
This
Oh,
is
it's gonna be
awesome. Make Bible bashing great again.
Yeah,
I
that's
wonder
right.
how the Catholics feel about this. If there's any of our Catholic listeners, I have no idea what like the conventions are around these
I know,
candle
this
things,
might
if
be
it's like
really-
offensive or not.
This might be really offensive. I'm sorry if it is. We're just joking.
Oh dear.
here.
Yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
check this out. Rock Family continues and says, I'm in Florida. Next time you visit family out here, I'll start the class up and you guys can drop in. We'll have a debate and no one challenges me here, even in just a role play. Bring it on, brothers. So I could play the role of the atheist, I guess. And then, I don't know, we'll figure it out. But that sounds like it could be cool. Then Astronomatical says early church leaders had the polygoriz. Okay. Yeah, like polygamy, but polygoriz. You know, I think it works, dude. I think it works, and it's pretty cool. So, thank you very much. Then Stephen English says, I got to meet Cardin at the fair conference with my dad. They had a long conversation on Thursday that easily could have been its own episode. Yeah, Stephen English was a cool guy. I remember seeing him there. We talked for a long time after, was it Friday night? I think it was Friday night, Saturday night. I think it was the second day. I don't remember. But anyway, thank you very much, Stephen. By the way, dude, there's some hilarious. The male cheerleaders at BYU, bro, make some hilarious Instagram and TikTok content. Have you guys seen these cats?
No.
No.
Bro, Stephen showed me his friend. I'm going to look it up on Instagram right now. Like lifting weights. Okay, Instagram lifting weights for YSA, like how to prepare for.
Wait, I have seen that one. I have seen that one,
Dude,
actually.
it is so funny.
It is funny.
What is the guys? Okay, so BYU male cheerleader. It was really fun. Yeah, this kid's yoked, dude. Like the BYU.
Yeah,
what's
male
it called?
cheerleaders are generally have giant arms.
Yeah, they're just freaking massive, dude. So, let me see here. Is it Ammon Montenegro? This is the first one that pops up. I don't know if this is the right person. I think it is. Okay, dude, this cat is freaking funny. I'm putting it up on the screen so everybody can just see really fast. But this cat is one of Stephen English's buddies, bro. And this guy is so funny. So, I mean, not only is he freaking yoked, right? You know what I'm saying? Like all these cats are. But then he does this whole entire routine where he shows like, you know, getting ready to pass the sacrament and then like different like weights that you can lift to like make it look like you're getting ready for YSA, like then how to take out the trash of like the girls that you're doing like service projects for. Like it is really funny. You got to subscribe to this cat. Man, Ammon Montenegro, your funniest sketch isn't pinned to the top of your profile, so I can't find it, bro. But let me tell you, this cat is like super funny. Oh, maybe it is pinned. I don't know. Well, I'll have to look for it another day. But anyway, yeah, these cats, like, they're freaking yoked and they're awesome and they're buffer and tougher than freaking any of us ever could be in a million years, and they're funny. So you got to check those out as well. Thank you very much, Stephen English. And Heather Hansen says, been inactive for almost 9 years. Ward Radio and Thoughtful Faith have been a huge factor in helping me find my way back to the church, despite the negligence of the church office building and traditional establishment leadership and cultural
that was not
practices.
in the
That was not part of the chat.
Oh,
Yeah,
that
I
wasn't
thought it was.
that wasn't there.
Man,
Oh, that wasn't there? Oh, okay. Let me.
Actually, I'm very interested. Heather, shoot me a message or an email or something. I'm very interested in hearing from my audience right now. I'm trying to get to understand what they find most beneficial. So like
Yeah, how to help
that
you
way
come
I
back.
can. So if you've anybody really who's found something good, let me know what specifically are the main things that you found the most helpful. So that way I can kind of focus on those things.
See, I, on the other hand, actually judge you for having left in the first place, find you weak and lacking. And I find it shameful that you would ever shirk your spiritual responsibility and don't want to. I'm totally just kidding, dude. I'm actually very curious as well. Like, what? I'm a jerk. Jacob's a jerk. Luke's nice. Austin's
Luke's nice.
nice. You know what I'm saying? Austin's nice. So they unbalance it out. But like, what a beautiful compliment. And Heather, you are an amazing person. And I actually would love to hear what you have to say when you say we are a huge factor in helping you find your way back to the church. I'm almost afraid of what the answer is. You know what I'm saying? But I'm also very interested to know what the answer is. And in fact, I'm going to sweeten the deal. Heather. We really, all joking aside, we want to know, like, no shock jocking right now. I want to know what you found was so helpful. And I'm going to hook you up with a Ward Radio shirt. Just super chat us again, or if I can find you right now, only the super chats show up. I got to find a way to make it so that I can see just the rest of the chats. Hold on. If
I'll
you
look
can,
for it too.
You'll look for it too, Austin. Okay. So if you super chat it, I can see it on my screen. If you just regularly chat it, Austin will be able to see it on his screen. But I want to hook you up with a Ward Radio shirt. If you can just tell us, like, what was helpful? Like, if you feel comfortable sharing, just say, like, what was helpful that did it for you. Because we got a lot of return members of the church and a lot of Catholics that listen to our show, we found out over the past couple live streams. And I'd like to know a little bit more about, what makes them tick. And then that is the last super chat. Okay, cool. Awesome. So we're here. So yeah, Heather, please let us know a little bit more. I'd love to hear more. So anyway, back to this right here, the task at hand, talking about Joseph Smith. I'm putting back up on the screen, okay, the thumbnail for all of you extra 100 people that have just joined us right now. We're live streaming The Real Joseph Smith History, which is a docuseries that is coming out on Jacob Hansen's channel, Thoughtful Faith, under the assistance and tutelage of Austin Falter of Falter Media. And it tells the real story of Joseph Smith from basically like neither a faithful nor an anti-faithful perspective. It's just a raw, bare bones history. And it's amazing. I'm going to go back to a question I was going to ask 30 minutes ago. You said you've gotten to know Joseph Smith a lot better now, and that you kind of nearly feel that, like, you have a much closer relationship with him, even though you obviously never met him. If you could be so bold, Jacob, or so bold, Austin, who do you think in the modern day is most like Joseph Smith that the average layman could compare himself to, or compare him to? Like, what would you say is like a modern equivalent of the vibe of the person that you've kind of grown to know?
Austin, you want to go?
Personality? Is this
at all?
What type of stuff he's doing? What
yeah, just think? Like at all. Like if like for example, if I were to describe a certain type of musician, you might say, oh, it's kind of like Jamiroquai meets Justin Bieber. You know what I'm saying? Like, how would you describe to just a baby of the faith, somebody just coming at this who's never heard the Joseph Smith story, and you're just gushing about how cool and tough and awesome this guy was? How would you describe to the layman Joseph Smith? Because, for example, you can't just start saying, oh, well, it's a prophet. I had actually converts when I was in Argentina that were hung up on the concept of a prophet being a young man and not an old man for a really long time, right? So, like, as you've gotten to know the prophet better, understand his personality, what he is like on a personal level, who would you compare him to in the modern day?
I know he's not gonna like this, but when you got Jubilee going and there's 25 Christians versus one atheist sitting around, and the guy who gets chosen, he's a Latter-day Saint, right? And he chooses to say that, like, the Latter-day Saint concept of God is the most correct and just like super bold declaring doctrine. There's something to be said about the boldness with which Jacob speaks, and that's part of why I get so pumped when I'm around him. I think I see that element in Joseph's story. I know he's going to hate all of this,
Yep.
but to be honest, like hanging out with you guys, Jonah, Luke, you guys are just bold in how you testify, and I'm not that way. And when I read Joseph Smith, when I read the words he spoke rather than the words he wrote, like when I read his sermons he spoke, he was bold and he was fun, and that's the vibe I get. I remember getting on a phone call with one of you guys as I was like trying to get more involved in helping out, and you guys were saying like it feels like Kirtland, what we're doing on YouTube right now. We're just figuring
I
out what
think I
works to
said
spread the
that.
gospel.
I think I
Right?
said that.
And
Yeah.
it feels like you're part of this brotherhood in Kirtland. And I'm like, and then I see, I mean, yesterday we got a text from somebody saying, "Hey, I'm getting baptized. I've been watching this channel. I'm getting baptized when I turn 18." And I can't tell you the joy that brings to hear that happening. So there's plenty of people in my ward that you guys wouldn't know. But I do think personality-wise, I think Joseph was a bit crazy. I think he would try out crazy things, and he was bold and unashamed, and he was a homie. And I see all of that in this community. That's part of why I love it so
He
much.
was a homie.
The problem with the question, in a way, is that Joseph Smith was very much a prophet.
Right.
And we don't have somebody who's young and a prophet right now.
Are you making
And
the
he was
new
also very
polygamy
much
denier?
in 1800s.
Polygamy
But he was
denier?
very much somebody from the 1800s.
See,
and we
and
don't have people from the 1800s anymore. So I think you have to just go and get to know Joseph himself, because we don't really have him anymore.
Right. I agree 100%. I was gonna say, first of all, I disagree with Austin, but I agree with this idea.
Yeah, you suck, bro.
Amongst this group, well, I'm about to give you a big compliment, Carden, because the person I was going to drop was actually kind of like Carden.
No.
But again, what I want to do is I almost want to do this. Take the boldness and sort of wild, one of the boys, gregarious personality, all that kind of stuff of a Carden Ellis, but then combine it with the spiritual sort of power of like President Nelson or one of the apostles today, right? You take that energy of youth, and then you combine it with like I was just reading about this too with him, that he had people said that he had a personality that was very much when it was time to be serious, he was serious. But when it was time to not be serious, he was not serious, and he was a lot of fun to just kind of like, again, he was like one of the homies, one of the boys, right? But when he was serious, he was someone who was saying things that was just like, you can't say that. Like, what do you mean that? Like it was, and but the other thing is that he came out of nowhere. Like, that's the thing, I think, more than anything in his story. It's just such a like, what? Like him? That guy? And so when I have to compare him to someone, I agree with you 100%. I have felt amongst this younger kind of, we're not going to apologize for our faith sort of movement in the church, which all of you listening, you guys are part of this as well. Like, that was the spirit of our young, and they were young. They were like us. The guys who got this whole thing going, but they also combined it with a high level of devotion to sort of the priesthood, and they knew when to take it serious, and they were deep. And that was, I think that is sort of that's the best way I could do, is combine somebody like a Carden Ellis with somebody like a Russell M. Nelson. If you can imagine those two being put into one person, I think that's closer to what you get to Joseph.
Yeah, we would have an amazing.
You can't ignore the effect that the kind of prophetic calling and mantle had on his personality. You can kind of see things shift throughout his life, which is it's fascinating.
And something like losing the plates and then getting him back again.
Oh yeah.
While also his young child dying, and Emma almost dying at the same time.
He's got to work the farm still, and
and what that turns you into is just, it's interesting.
And he was figuring stuff out too. Like, that's the other thing, is it's very clear to me. Like, people will say it's kind of like, oh, there was like this doctrinal development. It's like, you guys, he wasn't a Latter-day Saint in the sense like we are today. He didn't have like all the manuals and everything. This guy was literally like figuring this stuff out as he went. And that is also part of it, that like if we feel like we're trying to figure stuff out, it's like, hey, all right.
If I were to try and compare him to someone in the scriptures, I would say he kind of reminds me of Peter a lot.
Yep.
Peter, he was very human. He very much had, he shot from the hip, and he was wild and cutting people's ears off and getting angry. I think, Jacob, were you talking about this recently too? Where we
I always say I always feel more like
just talking about Peter.
Yeah, no,
I just think he was a prophet, but personality wise just reminds me of that type of character.
All right, dude. Sick. Awesome. Let's keep going here. The Kolob Society asks, Jacob, was Joseph Smith an open theist with the air coming out of his ears because he's furious? So was Joseph Smith an open theist, or am I opening a can of worms with this question?
You're kind of opening a can of worms, but here's the other thing. I would not put Joseph in the camp of the great theologian. I would not say that Joseph was a theologian. He was a revelator, and he did his best in matters of theology, but his theology is a little bit bumpy. That's one of the things that's so incredible, is that like he wasn't a good theologian, but he solved all the theological problems of the traditional creedal system.
Well, I just saw a video from the God Loves Mormons guy, actually pretty well done, I gotta say, about the King Follett sermon. And he says, yeah, Joseph Smith says, like, we all couldn't have had a beginning, because if we did, we'd have an end. And so we all have to be eternal. And then he says, but he never explained why that was the case. And so he just sort of says it without explaining it. So he's just spitballing here and making stuff. I'm like, no, I think Joseph Smith has seen things, but it's in a familial kind of way. Like, I've actually gone and climbed Mount Everest or something, and I'm trying to explain to you how the snow, how the snow shifts and moves, and I'm not using the correct geological terms that the scientists would use, and I don't have kind of like that more scientific whole breadth view of it, but I've been there, I've seen it, and I'm trying to tell you guys this stuff, and I'm just doing the best I can with this first person, not academic knowledge that I have of the topic. That seems to be the interaction that he has with stuff like theology.
Mm-hmm.
All right, word.
He's just revealing. He's not theologizing.
Okay. Last three super chats. Kyle says, adding to Kolob comment, I think Joseph Smith was a restoration adjusted Molinist. I think Adj Molinism fits better even after reading Osler. I don't know what that is. That sounds like
Molinism. I watched a debate between William Lane Craig and James White, I believe.
I can't think of a
moderated
worse
discussion
experience.
on Premier Unbelievable on Molinism.
But
it's kind of this idea of God has a middle knowledge, and so he knows everything. He knows the future, but he also doesn't know stuff because he has a middle knowledge that's sort of like a Schrodinger's knowledge. It has to be observed before you know what state it's going to end up in, type of a thing. I don't know if that was Joseph Smith or not.
I will say this, just so everyone knows, as I'm studying the history of Joseph Smith, I'm not focusing so much on the theological side. I'm telling his story of like what he did in this, and that's where I'm dedicating my research. I may at some point do more of a theological dive, but the way I look at it, let's just first find out what the heck this guy was doing throughout his life, and then you can start building the theological history and the saints' history and all that stuff around this sort of core storyline that I'm trying to put out in this series.
Okay, last two super chats here in the last 2 minutes. Mr. E says, I'm a big fan of Columbus. Thanks to you, Jacob. I'm excited for this series, ! But why do so many people still hate Columbus? Is it a lack of looking at first-hand accounts? Or is it the unadulterated progmos, which run rampant through the church office building, unencumbered by a niceness culture which refuses to stand up for what is right?
Hey.
I spent a lot of money on that super chat.
I knew this was worth it.
You need to change that to minutes. Within a live stream, it's a minute since last.
Oh
Grant.
I'm just
You
leaning
did
into
it.
the meme. You know?
Minutes, we'll do it.
So it really ended saying, I'm a big fan of Columbus. Thanks to you, Jacob. I'm excited for this series, but why do so many people still hate Columbus? Is it a lack of looking into firsthand accounts?
It's just people just don't know his story. I mean, I often tell people, like, okay, tell me what happened on Columbus's third voyage. Just give me a rough outline, rough sketch, what happened during it.
He
And they're just like-
imprisoned a bunch of natives, yelled racial epithets at them, and said, I'm going to steal your gold, end your identity, and colonize you for the good of white people in Western Asia.
That's the whole thing. People
I mean,
don't
Western
know the
Europe.
story. And that's why I was like, wait a minute, if nobody knows the story, and I had finally learned the story, I was like, I'm going to tell the story. And I'm going to put it on my channel. I'm going to put it out there for people to see. Because once you actually know the story, then you can judge it. And it's all historical. I went month by month through his voyages and what he was doing. And the story is just crazy. And there are some parts in there where Columbus, maybe you could throw some shade at him, but it's definitely not what people think. And so go study it. And if people want to read a really great book on that, one of the most recent one is called, it's by Carol Delaney. I think it's called Columbus and the Quest for Jerusalem. Just so everyone knows, Columbus went on his voyages so that he could raise money for a crusade to liberate Jerusalem from the Muslims so that they could build the new temple in preparation for the second coming of Jesus Christ. His entire mission was to try and prepare the world for the coming of second. Yes. It's
Based.
dude, it's more based than you can ever imagine. Like
What?
it was, yes, he wanted to find the great Khan of Asia so that they could create an alliance and a trading partnership so that they could attack the Muslims from the east while we attack them from the west in a new crusade. Because Columbus, when he was a young man, he saw Constantinople fall to the Muslims. And that was like the biggest thing ever. That was like half of Christendom just got conquered by the bad guys. And so he said, they're the great Antichrist. And what we're going to do is we're going to go find Asia so that we can... Columbus's primary motivation his entire life was his wild religiousness. He was a zealot, and he found crazy Queen Isabella, who was also a religious zealot, who bought into his vision that we can retake Jerusalem and prepare the world for the second coming of Jesus Christ. So Columbus' express purpose in doing what he did was to prepare the world for the second coming of Jesus Christ. And
Even
if
if
you
it
don't think that
meant
has
the
implications to us, you're blind.
So even if it meant the anti-Semitic expulsión de los judíos.
Yeah, actually, the reason that he got the ships that he got, which were kind of secondhand crappy ships, was because all the other ships were being used to deport Jews from Spain. Yeah, so all the other ships were busy, and there was this town where they owed the king like a favor. And so the king called him, was like, hey, we got this guy. My wife wants him. He wants to go on this crazy mission. Like, will you give him 3 ships? Oh, by the way, the crews that were on those ships, they got hired to go. And they were like, really? Like, we're going to go with this guy? And he wasn't even Spaniard. He's a Genoese. Again, this story is just a cool story. Like, I don't care if you like him or don't like him. Like, this is cool. Like, sailing adventure. He was marooned on Jamaica for a year. And then he convinced the natives that, this is just, I gotta tell the story because it's just so cool. And the Simpsons made an episode out of it. So they were marooned on Jamaica for a year. They were running out of food, and the natives had food, and they were, and so Columbus convinced the natives, because the natives would bring him food at first and then they stopped. He called the natives over and was like, hey, the gods are angry with you guys. And tonight, or he said, and they're going to black out the sun. Well, guess what? Columbus had an astronomical book that told him that there was going to be an eclipse that day. And so when the eclipse started happening, all the natives freaked out. And then it said, and for the rest of the time on Jamaica, they had plenty of food. And so, and then one of their guys builds a raft, and he paddles like 150 miles across the Caribbean's open ocean to get to the Dominican Republic now, and Hispaniola, and then the Spaniards capture him, lock him up for like 8 months, thinking that then Columbus and his men will starve, but they don't. Then the guy gets out and he gets a boat and he goes back and saves Columbus and his men. You guys, it's the coolest story. Go watch my video. It's on my channel, Thoughtful Faith.
It's a lot less interesting of a watch than it is a listen, though. The Joseph Smith doc is a level up. I'll tell you that much.
That is true. It's basically just me talking in that one.
Okay.
This one we got Austin involved. So the Joseph Smith documentary actually not only sounds cool, but looks cool.
All right,
don't
we're
wanna
4
gag,
minutes in
but-
overtime. Going to wrap it up here with this last super chat here. Mag Larson says Joseph Smith was a man, not a god. People seem to expect perfection from people in the past. He was flawed, but the flaws make him relatable. I bet Jesus cracked jokes, but those aren't written about. What say you, Jacob, Luke, and Austin?
Inspiring Philosophy actually went on a rant one time where he explained how Jesus actually is very sarcastic in the Gospels, but
He is.
because we're not first century Hebrews, we don't pick up on it that much. So he definitely had a personality.
He was
and
based.
Joseph Smith definitely had a personality as well.
Okay, cool. Any other insights, Austin, Jacob? Any other commentary?
I was going to say, I think that if we're thinking of who to compare Joseph to, like, I think that Peter analogy is exactly right. And we should respect him with the same respect that we would respect someone like a Peter or a Moses or other prophets. He's nothing more than any of those other prophets, in my opinion. He's a prophet of God who was called for his time to do what he did. And he was a fully human being. And frankly, I love seeing someone who's dealing with crap, that everything from financial worries to illness to family issues to all of it, because it's like, hey, that's us.
Yeah.
And yet
Yeah.
look what came out of it.
Sometimes it's easier to relate to the prophets in the scriptures who were human and who were mortal and who struggled than it is even to Christ, who is, at least for me, when I read Nephi's psalm where he's talking about his depression, like I connect with those human elements a
No,
lot.
he
'cause
wasn't a
they-
weak millennial. He was a based 6th century alpha, Chad. He didn't get depressed.
yeah, he did. Go read the Psalm of
There-
Nephi.
No,
Psalm-
depression's just
Actually-
the excuse to sleep in through seminary. Come on. He had
No,
real things to worry
actually,
about.
Actually, that's one of the big criticisms, more academic criticisms of the Book of Mormon, is that Nephi's writing style is much too self-reflective and self-conscious and like in touch with his inner self for somebody from 600 BC.
Dude,
Yeah.
So-
Well, we have a translation that came from the Lord, so I'm not too worried about that.
that's funny. I got to tell you, dude, you haven't experienced Mormonism until you've done it in a somewhat Germanic kind of way. First, I was in Berlin, Germany at state conference when I was living there briefly for a film project that was going on at Babelsberg Studios, actually. Super cool. And in walks for the state conference, Dieter Uchtdorf. And listening to Uchtdorf in his mother tongue, abortion and donations to the Democrat Party. I'm sorry. No, that's not what he was speaking. That's what he was doing a year later. I meant when he was speaking in German and the missionaries were translating to me into English was actually a super cool experience. I dug it, right? And then conversely, all right, the oh, come on, what were you just saying? Chemo brain's kicking in. The no, where else was I in Germany?
Humanity of it all,
Oh crap, man. I was going to make a super cool analogy here. And I was like, you haven't experienced Mormonism until you experienced it. Okay, so there was
German style.
Ah, crap. Now I can't remember where I was going. God was punishing me for making fun of Elder Uchtdorf. You know?
Yep.
I could see that.
Probably.
A stupor of thought, you
There
might
you
say.
go.
Exactly.
Or my chemo brain really kicked in. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, crap. I can't remember where I was going with this. That it was, no, when I lived in Germany, Uchtdorf came in. There was two super dramatic. Oh, crap. Now I can't remember what it is. But whatever. I'm sure as soon as I stop the live stream, I'll absolutely remember. And the best part is I have the power to edit this out at the end. So I will not look foolish at this very end moment. I will just cut straight to the ending. Nobody will know it happened. Nobody will know it happened. All right. So anyway, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. This has been totally awesome. Thank you, everybody that's given us some super chats. Shout out to Fonzie D and Mads that joined the channel. Same with Jonathan West and all the others. Mag Larson, Mr. E, Kyle, the Kolob Society. You guys are awesome. Heather Hansen, Stephen English, Ben English, Astronomical, Habitable, Kale Chips Vendetta, Doc, Tanner, Nathan, Jeffrey, Schmore, Bat, and the Rock family. please make sure you guys reach out to us. We want to make sure that we make it there to your cool apologetics class. Also, shout out to the Underground BYU Apologetics Club, which is forming right now. They haven't been chartered officially yet. They're bouncing in between being a student association and then just like a club. And there's different, man, Chemo Brain's really bad today. Not qualifications, different characteristics of each and so on and so forth. But I met with some of their unofficial leadership because right now they're meeting unofficially just as a group of friends, 40 or 50 of them just doing different get-togethers and so on and so forth. And I got to tell you, these kids are really fun and they're actually attacking it on YouTube, making some good content, so you guys can check them out as well. But anyway, it's been totally awesome. How can people watch your production? I'm putting up on the screen one last time here. Jacob and Austin. How can people, tune into this, man? What's the best way?
Austin, you tell them.
Yeah, go over to Jacob's channel. We're going to have a playlist over there. Episode 1, the preface is live. Episode 2, which starts to tell the story, that'll be live tomorrow. And then it'll be every week after that for a little while. We might slow down in a few months and kind of follow the Come Follow Me kind of timeline a little bit. Just because...
More like in a few weeks. We got a few in the queue, but... in about a month, it'll probably slow down and not be weekly releases as we finish the last half.
We got to finish. I mean, we've been working on the first 4 episodes for 6 months. We wanted to have several so that you could binge watch some of them. But we'll finish throughout the rest of the year and then go on to the Brigham Young story.
And I'm gonna have it. This is also I'm on my website. I'm gonna create certain content that is sort of what we call in the biz evergreen content. It's sort of content that's relevant, not just right now, but basically anytime. And this video series will be part of that evergreen content. So on my website, there will be a web page dedicated to these stories. So it will be, I'm thinking about titling it probably something like Our Story. And then you just click on it and then it will have the Joseph Smith episodes all listed down. And then below that, it will have the Brigham Young ones eventually as those come out so that we can have kind of where you can go and see our story and you can share our story with others. So for missionaries or for anyone out there who wants to, have somebody see what is the story of Joseph Smith, they can go through this series. And by the end of the series, anyone who watches it, you will know more about the story of Joseph Smith than 9.9% of people in the world. And probably about 90% of people in the church, if not more than that. So it's time well spent to watch it from an educational perspective.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, please make sure you like this stream before you go. Share it with your friends as soon as you're done. If you're a person of means, please consider a generous contribution through Venmo or through the Cash App or Zelle. Both are available at the icons on your screen. We also have an Amazon wish list, which has been super helpful in getting us all kinds of goodies here. Recently, M. Smith hooked us up with a hard drive as well as the cover for the hard drive for some of these excursion videos that we are going to be doing out and about, which will be coming out soon as well. As we like to say in all of our live streams, it's been real, it's been fun, and it's been real fun. For this and more, please make sure you guys check us out at wardradio.com.